interviews we did with the McGowans about the same issue.
Yes.
Family-owned company, and they didn't pay dividends, and they had some major stockholders that lived in California, couldn't buy a new car every 10 years, and that was really one of the primary impulses to sell at the time.
Yeah, I remember when they sold, and I knew all those McGowans. I knew Greeley now, but you know, they didn't think they had anybody to run it, and they had Floyd had two sons, one Greeley, and the other one is Floyd. And Floyd has been running the logging operations over there for Union Camp, and Greeley is in charge of all their land management and everything. And Greeley's an outstanding person.
Yeah, I know Greeley. He's retired now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he retired too young, but I guess you got to with some of these corporations. But you're right about that, and that'll happen as it comes down layer after layer.
Sure.
Now I've been careful about nepotism. And I've tried to put it on that everybody's going to earn the right to be here or get gone, one of the two. And I've only got two of this generation coming in. I've got one of John. John has one boy. I got him here, and he's showing me that he has got the ability to get along with people. He's got the imagination, and he'll work. He is not as detail as Billy's son, Bob, who graduated at Georgia Tech as an engineer, but he's an engineer. I said, well, now, there's only one thing wrong about that, and that is you ought to be a businessman engineer. And he'd rather engineer something, and he doesn't want to get into that the detail of the money-making end of that, and but he loves that engineering, which we need. And he's engineering something over there at the OSB plant. It cost us $4.5 million, but it's a new wrinkle that we're going to waferize the whole tree rather than these 33-inch blocks. You know, that way all the plants cut them into 33-inch blocks and then make wafers out of them. So this is going to be a big improvement. Louisiana Pacific is just doing it too. And Harry Merlo, I figured he's going to do. He's going to study it out and do the best thing. And some of the people he got, they hard.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that these two boys can carry on, and I'm hoping that we're doing the right thing. But you never know, because these tax laws change and all of this, and it certainly and that happens on that about any piece of land, is that you can take any piece of land and sell it and take that money and get a greater income than what they're getting out of growing trees right now.
Yeah.
The long run, I think they're wrong. Now I see that this paper mill at Macon, I've listened to their manager talk, says that we don't want any land. We have sold our land. And then he told us how he did it. He said we sold it for so many $1 million. Said we eliminated this many people on our payroll. We're going to buy trees, and with that much money we can draw interest on that, and we can pay more money for wood. We don't need to be growing trees. People, companies, other folks can grow trees cheaper than we can. I think that's right at the moment, but I don't think in the long run that if you don't have some sort of backlog, you're going to set yourself in a precarious situation. But that's the way some of them are looking now.
Well, it may be the way the accountants look at things.
Yeah.
I can't see why they can't grow wood as cheap as anybody else, but their overhead is high.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way they manage the company, high overhead.
Yeah.
Well, it's fascinating to me. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Oregon, the guests of the Starker family. You may have heard of the Starker tree farm here in Corvallis.
I've seen that name.
Well, it's a third generation. Their grandfather was a forestry professor at Oregon State. He started buying land during the Depression, and they have 58,000 acres. They just have land. They don't do any manufacturing, and they're doing very well because it's private property, and with the demise of the federal timber, they have a very good market for their products now. But they have the same concerns you do about the next generation, tax laws, inheritance tax, property tax, plus environmental concerns about land will be taken away from them. And that may happen here. Some of the wetlands
Yes.
may be taken away.
Yes. In fact, we're getting more and more pressure on some of this. I can see that coming about.
We haven't talked at all about the associations. Is there, if the Bush administration defines wetlands in a broader sense, so a significant amount of land, forest land, is no longer able to practice silviculture, will there be lawsuits for taking without just compensation? Or
I would think so. I would think so. Although, you know what, I'm seeing what some of these people are sort of happy about it. They're going in there and they're cutting the timber off of some of these wetland areas, and they say, well, now, I'm not going to get anything out of that wetland. It's going to be a long time. I'd have to spend a lot of money. And you know, I just saw in the Florida Times-Union today where they bought a tract down there on the St. Johns River, a tributary of the St. Johns River below Jacksonville, and for 6,000 acres, they paid $8.5 million. Well, what really happened is that owner is getting better price than he could have got any other way, you know.
Sure.
So he's going along with it. So I know it's a problem. I know. Of course, the alternative to some of that is to form a corporation. And I read the book Timber and Men, the Warehousing. I read the Maverick book of Georgia Pacific. I read the book that Winn-Dixie, the grocery crowd down there that lives in Jacksonville, Don't Make A&P Mad. And I like all that biography and autobiography and the companies that started. But it was very difficult to keep them going.
Well, George Weyerhaeuser retired, and there's no Weyerhaeuser family member.
Yeah, but his son is coming along, but he's not ready yet, I guess.
Yeah.
I've been with George Weyerhaeuser. I tried to get him to buy this paper mill down here too, but he got I think he got his feathers ruffled because Georgia Pacific wanted to swap land with him. You know, and the mill, they wanted some of the land that the mill had and let them have some that they had further over here toward the Gulf. It was about half as good. I kind of think that ruffled George Weyerhaeuser's people, that it would me too. But they were taking advantage of that. But I told George Weyerhaeuser over the telephone when I talked to him, and I says, now, I told him how old I was. I'm going to be 78 years old my next birthday. And I said, I said, we hope that we can keep everything going, but I don't know. But that you'd be sitting right here in a good position if it did come about.
Yeah.
So George Weyerhaeuser, and I knew Larry White. Did you know him?
I know Lowry, yes.
He was a fine person, and he talked George Weyerhaeuser building this particle board plant up here at Adel, right on the highway. And I got involved in that a little bit. I wanted to build it. I wanted to be part of it. But that's the first plant Larry White told me that George Weyerhaeuser and the Weyerhaeuser crowd agreed that they didn't have any good understanding about their raw material. But so far he's gotten. We sell our planer mill shavings to him. But all those old companies like that, I guess they've been fascinating to me. I was president of the Southern Pine Association, and when you're president, you start off as second vice president, first vice president, president, and then chairman. And you get to knowing all these people you're working with and these companies. And when I was over there, up until the time I got there, we were always fighting Douglas fir wood. And we found out that wasn't our problem. Our problem was getting people to use wood. And then about that time, when Lamett started coming over here, well, of course, Weyerhaeuser their big purchase was right after that when DeVere Dirks died, and then they bought Tom DeWeese out at Philadelphia, and then, of course, International Paper Company was over here, and they were spreading out. Georgia Pacific was over here. I remember when they started. Not right when they started, but right after that. I remember during the war, before the war. And then you had some of these other companies, but most all of them would come by here and want to talk about some sort of deal. Even Bill Swindell. He bought that hunt deal there in Louisiana, you know. So that's a problem.
Well, wood supply. I'm still intrigued by this paper mill in Macon that says it doesn't need its own wood supply because it's a major reversal of attitude.
Absolutely. It shocked me. And I went up there and I listened to it. And we were there on that some sort of meeting. But now you know Macon is in a very good position for wood. Now you know there's a lot of pine around there. And way back yonder, before the war, when we'd have a slowdown in business, people would not buy those kind of wood up there. You know, they'd call those roofers, and your grain would be far apart, and they would slow down. They were having 15% number 3 grade lumber when we were having 3% down here out of ordinary logs. And so they don't really have a competition from lumber companies. And that loblolly pine is a prolific tree.
That's right. I know.
Yeah. And I would say that's Australians that bought that mill, you know. And flack or flat or something on that order.
Fletcher Challenge?
No, that doesn't sound right. But anyway, I would assume that what they're doing, Doctor, is the fact that he's going to make money now. He's going to get that mill paid for, and then he's going to sell out.
I see.
Now, a lot of these mills have got that in mind and are not looking at it for the long term, because those executives now are interested in what they're going to get and what benefits they're going to get and what retirement they're going to get.
Well, that's one of the problems of a publicly owned company, too.
Yes.
You have to pay quarterly dividends.
Yes. And that's where a lot of times where they get the money. They quit buying and they start cutting their timber to get that money to pay that dividend. Very interesting. It's a pleasure to talk to you about all these things. You've seen it from another angle.
Well, I just want to follow up on that, the dividends and the privately held company. All of these companies that we went through, you have the organizational chart. The family is involved, they own shares. So they're stockholders officially.
Well, we've got two classes of stock. We've got Class A and Class B. Class B, non-voting. Nobody, well, I wouldn't say nobody, because some of them have got a little bit. But to see my two brothers and see my sister, John and I are trustees for that. And we've got all the voting stock. So we don't have to get involved in the people that have some stock in this company with the voting part. That's sort of like Ford Motor Company did.
But I'm just thinking of the income stream. The company doesn't pay dividends to the stockholders, to the shareholders, but you work for the company, you draw a salary, but you have this asset that's increasing in value.
Right. Now we do see under our arrangements with the Langdale trust stock, we don't owe any money on that, and we got an income coming in there, that they get some income there, and then a smaller dividend. But I think you're absolutely right that sooner or later they're going to want that dividend more, because they know that the company is worth more money. Everybody tells them that. I tell them how poor we're doing and how hard it is to make ends meet, but a lot of people think if you own 100 acres of land, you're independent and wealthy, you know, which is not the case.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about agriculture and some of the reading material. One of the magazine articles, maybe it was a Saturday Evening Post article, talked about the tobacco allotment of 400 acres or 368 acres, might be the largest in the country. Why is that large for tobacco allotment? I mean, I don't know that much about tobacco, even though I live in North Carolina.
Well, you take Georgia, you know, was sort of later coming in and growing tobacco. We grow fruit-cured tobacco, and we grow a good grade. It brings a good price. The foreign buyers like our tobacco for their cigarette. They have a law that they don't want any additives to it. They want natural tobacco. So they come down here and they hike our price up, and we got a good tobacco market here. And even with all the talk about tobacco being so bad for them, tobacco is a good cash crop, and we've got our people on the farm that they can make their cash money and out of tobacco, and then the other crops are sort of incidental that they can grow along and they make a living. Our farmers this past year, we had a too wet a year, and a lot of people did not make their quota, but our people did. And tobacco is we did, I think, have the biggest quota in Georgia or Florida. But then, they changed the laws of the rules and regulations, I guess, where if you were an individual farmer and you wanted to sell your allotment, you could sell it to somebody else, and then they had to move it and put it on their land or whatever it is. And a lot of people did that, and we've had 2 or 3 that I know about that did more of that. We did a little of it, but we didn't want to go too much bigger. We didn't want to be known as the biggest tobacco grower. Really, we kept that sort of quiet. My father would talk about that because he liked farming. But so our quota now is 500,000 pounds of flue-cured tobacco. So I would say it's in the upper 8 or 10 of Georgia or Florida, maybe more than that. But we've got a farm manager that's his forte, you might say, is growing tobacco. He knows how to grow tobacco. Now peanuts is under quota too, and that's been good. But if they've already opened the foreign markets up a little bit, and they're going to do more of that, I think. And if Mexico can ship peanuts up here, that's going to cut down on what our peanuts are bringing. So I don't know how that'll be. But the way we got that quota, Dr. Steen, is the fact that we would buy our little farm next to us, and they'd have an acre or 2, and we would consolidate that with ours, and then we'd plant, his land might be poor land, and we'd plant that in pine trees, but we'd keep our better land, tobacco land, over here, and we'd have it all consolidated. And that's the way we got it, by buying land over the years. We didn't buy any tobacco allotment to speak of straight out. It's buying the land, and we got the tobacco allotment, or peanut allotment, or whatever. Yeah.
So, but the laws are, if you wanted to grow more tobacco, you can't grow more land.
No, you can't grow more tobacco. Now you could buy somebody's allotment and grow his allotment, but you can't increase the allotment, because they say, well, the allotment this year is so many million pounds in Georgia, this county, and they've got all that controlled, and they would say, well, we're going to raise it 2%, state of Georgia wide, and that means this county is going to get 2%, and we'll get 2%. But it's controlled.
This is a federal control.
Federal control.
Yeah. The same way for peanuts?
It what?
Same way for peanuts?
Yes. Now peanuts, you can grow some what you call market peanuts, but then you're at the mercy of the market. And this year, we had some farmers that went ahead and contracted those right before they planted them. And they got a good price for them. About that time, the administration announced they were going to let so many tons come in, import, and the price dropped like that, and everybody that waited to have a contract lost money on it. So I don't know what's going to happen there, because all the consumer is fussing about peanut prices being so high, peanut butter and all that. And so I would think that the peanut business is not going to be as good as it has been in the past. But we got a lot of farmers that have made some money in the peanut business, because the peanut business you do with machinery and equipment, and it doesn't take that many people, and you're not worried with the labor costs, and people have made money.
So the capital investment in these expensive tractors is easier to deal with than labor.
Yes, sir. Yes, if you got the land.
If you got the land.
So I would say that we are farming we were farming a little over 5,000 acres, and we've cut that down in the last 5 years to about 4,000 acres of cultivatable land. That's tobacco and peanuts and all these other crops. And we're just not dependent on it, but it's been an income factor to us, really.
Mm-hmm. One more question about peanuts. I mean, I like peanut butter. Are there different kinds? Do you grow one kind of peanuts for peanut butter, one kind of peanuts that you buy in the shell and Planters peanuts by a certain kind, or is it just to grow peanuts?
We grow two kinds of peanuts down here. We call them Spanish peanuts and runner peanuts. Spanish peanut is a little smaller than the runner, but both of them are used. For peanuts, and for food, and for peanut oil. Peanut oil is a big market for that. A lot of people cook in peanut oil. They say if you fry fish and everything, use peanut oil and it's better. Of course, they own all kind of other oils now. They're trying to encourage us to plant canola, and canola is an oil that's sold as Puritan oil that has no cholesterol. It has it's a little bean about just big enough to see, but we planted some last year and it comes out good.
How do you spell that?
Canola, C-A-N-O-L-A.
Canola, okay.
This year it's too dry to plant, but we've got some of our land irrigated because we found out that irrigating tobacco will pay off, but some of these other crops I'm not so sure.
Did the family acquire this land as agricultural land? Is that why you acquired it?
Yes. No.
It just came with...
I don't believe we ever acquired anything just because it's agricultural land. Maybe we could say that with a piece of Jaundice or something. But ordinarily, we bought it and it came with the forest land. Of course, my father used to say that I started off farming, and he had farmed back in the 20s and lost money, and he didn't particularly like it. But he had to get in and look after his farm because he said I was going to plant them all in pine trees. And he said that'll happen when he's gone because farming was difficult. But he loved farming. He liked to talk to farmers.
Part of my preparation for the interviews was to read the interview we did with Cap Eldridge maybe 20 years ago. You must have known him well.
Oh, yes. He was, I remember very well. And in fact, he said something about us in one of his books, his Full Forest. Did you write that?
Yeah. Well, it was we did. No, we weren't involved in the Fourth Forest.
He quoted Full Forest in the book. I've got it here somewhere.
Yeah, I saw that book. He told a lot about the naval stores, the turpentine factors, and so forth. He also talked a lot about Fargo. He must have been involved there somehow. He knew a lot about Fargo. Yeah,
he was. You know how it came about? No. Well, back in the 20s, three families got together: Lawrence and Knight and Williams. Two of them lived in Pennsylvania. One lived in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Lawrence lived there. And they thought that they were in the paper size business. The name of their company was Paper Makers Chemical Corporation. Lawrence's family was originally from Nova Scotia. And they started making paper size for the paper mills. And they decided that there wasn't going to be any trees. There was going to be a shortage of trees, and there wasn't going to be any naval stores, and there wasn't going to be any rosin for them to make paper size out of it. So they were making money. So they hauled off and bought 150,000 acres of land in Fargo that came back this way, that we owned around it and worked with them. And so they did that in 1926. They paid $6.25 an acre for it. It had been burned, it had been turpentine, and so they started off down there, and they got Captain Eldridge to run it. So he moved to Fargo, built a house, and started fire protection. And he had the toughest time you ever saw. Those crackers down there had the woods cows, and they'd burn the woods and this and that. But he tried the best he could to have some fire protection without much equipment. They tried the turpentine. They just lost money, everything they did about turpentine. They tried the sawmill a little bit, they lost money sawmilling. And so Captain Eldridge was there, and he was trying to get an assistant. And he got Bill Ottmeyer from Pennsylvania, who had gone to forestry school up there. That'd be him, Ottmeyer. And he had been in World War One, and he had been with a radio deal and everything. So Captain Eldridge left that forest down there. But by the time he left, Bill Ottmeyer took over. Bill Ottmeyer conceived the idea of getting people who were in the lumber business to saw logs and people in the turpentine business turpentine. So then is when we got in the turpentine business big, and we started in 1929 with one camp down there. We took over. And then about 1931, they said, well, take them all over. And so we were turpentining down there on a percentage basis, which was a unique way of turpentining back in those days. We would do everything. They'd furnish the trees. We built some shanties, you might say, for our labor. We had the mules and the horses and the wagons and the trucks and the people. And we'd make rosin and turpentine, and we gave them 25% of whatever we produced. And Bill Ottmeyer came down there running it, and so he and I got to be great friends. And I was working with him, and he was so happy. We'd go to, I never will forget, we went to a Society of American Foresters meeting at Lake City, and all the foresters that you could roust out anywhere, including those with the National Forest in Florida and Georgia and everywhere. We had, I think, 15 foresters down there. Back in the 30s now, that was the late 30s. And, but we started working with Bill Ottmeyer, and so this company got along better then. So they are a land-owning company, but other people are doing this. So Bill Ottmeyer went to World War II, and then when he came back, they were having a little bit of difficulty there, so he conceived the idea of leasing that to St. Regis Paper Company, and he did. I always thought he made the lease. He ought not have done it, and I'd argue with him about it. But he wanted to quiet down the rumblings of some of the management problems and some of the ownership problems, and keep the continuity of it. So he leased it for 60 years. In 1948 to St. Regis, and now St. Regis, you know, went broke, and Champion has got it now, and Champion doesn't have a mill. St. Regis had the mill down there in Jacksonville at Eastport, and they shut it down. And so, but anyway, that's been a great forest, Superior Pine Products Company. And I've got a little videotape of what they put together on that. If you,
I'd like to see that.
I've got it here somewhere, and I see that I've got something from Bill Ottmeyer Jr. I believe he sent me another one. I already have one. This is from Superior Pine Products. So I don't know. But we worked together, and we're the ones that promulgated more and more CC camps down there, and had roads. We didn't have any roads, didn't have nothing, no drainage or anything. And when I graduated college, I moved down there in a house, and I was riding my horse and supervising turpentine work. And the house, it didn't have screens, it didn't have any running water, didn't have any bathroom, didn't have any electricity. And I moved down there, and Bill Ottmeyer was living in Fargo. And now his son is manager down there. Bill Ottmeyer died about 10, 12 years ago. 15 maybe now. His wife is still living here, and she's 89 years old, and I see her quite frequently.
Well, I was going to ask you about Ottmeyer, because obviously the two of you respected each other very much. You wrote articles about each other in the various magazines.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's getting a little bit away from the story here, but Eldridge tells the story about moonshining.
Yeah.
And how a moonshiner deposited $100,000 in a bank in Valdosta.
Yeah.
Now the moonshiner, was that a problem to you? You've got people on your land, they start fires, it's illegal, it's all those, or...
Well, we really never did have any bad trouble with them, because they respected us and we respected them, and we never did report them. We figured we knew if we reported them and they found out about it, they would burn us from one end to the other.
Sure.
And they got to respect us about that. And that wasn't any problem. Now, when Captain Eldridge went down there, it was a problem, because they would have these rough-looking moonshine stills down there, and they would haul that whiskey to Atlanta or Macon or further up, and they would sell it. But I've been up on the stills many a time, and our people have known about them, and we left them alone. And that problem went away because they couldn't make any money out of it eventually. And we had pretty good revenue officers down here that worked on that. But we had a policy of leaving them alone. Now, even after we came up here and bought land in this county, I can take you down there and show you places where liquor stores were. They'd have brick and they'd have the barrels and the old hoops are still there. And they'd make the buck there, and they would go ahead and make moonshine and sell it.
So they're fairly permanent stills, and they had brick and so.
Well, no, they wouldn't be permanent. They'd put them on brick, but it wouldn't be brick.
And mortar.
Mortar, no.
Okay.
They would have the barrels. They would most of the time have it, and then they would stay there so long, and then they'd build another one somewhere else, and the revenue also would find that one and tear it up. But I've seen some big stills. There's one down here that I saw one time about 25 years ago. That was as long as from here to front of the office, and about 5 or 6 feet wide and high and different. And he cooked it with butane, and it was a commercial outfit. They were making a lot of moonshine carrying to Atlanta.
We turn this take a look.
Captain Eldridge was a good person, but I tell you what, a lot of those crackers, he was very smooth gentleman. And if he'd have been a little bit rough and tried to bow up against him, he'd have had a lot of trouble, because there was a lot of problems down there. His wife, Mrs. Ottmeyer, said they used to have a killing down there every week. Let's see, this is. Oh, this is the interview they had with me in that, but I've got the one that completed over there. Yeah, that's what this is.
Well, why is he doing this? Is this Superior Pine? Is this the association?
This is Superior Pine doing it because the Lawrence boys are still living, and one of them is, I think he's 74, and the other one is 64, and sitting one 64 has got what he calls a Lawrence videotapes or something on that. Or there it is, Lawrence Productions. And he's his own company is doing it, but he's doing it for Superior Pine Products Company. Superior Pine Products Company is now not producing anything themselves, and they're doing like you said this family did out west. And you know, that's all right now, but until you had the markets, you couldn't do that.
I guess I should write to Ottmeyer and ask him. We'd like to know more about this, to see if this is available. What this history project that they're doing.
I don't know how we want to talk to you. You got to leave here a little before 12, but I might get somebody to set that on so you can see that. And it's pretty good. It's a pretty good little thing. I'll get Johnny to see if he can. Let me see if I can find him a minute. I'll be right. If you'll cut it off just a minute, I'll be right back.
Sure.
Let's go from there.
Well, we've talked about using videotape for these interviews, but it's a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
If I interview you for 6 hours, the transcript someone can read in 1 hour. But a videotape, it takes you 6 hours to look at the whole thing. So it becomes who's going to use the whole videotape? But people keep asking us, why don't we do videotape? We just haven't. We did one.
Well, they have written me after they sent me the one over there that didn't I want to then make a video. I said, well, we were talking to you then, and I said after a while maybe, but after you do this, and maybe a video might come in.
Sure. Is there more about the Ottmeyer family? Officer Bill Ottmeyer Jr. is a friend.
Yes, sir. Well, Bill Ottmeyer Sr. came there, and he married Mildred Williams, and they've been friends ever since because he and I would go around to these forestry meetings together. I was with him when he organized the Forest Farmers Association meeting, but I was at the factors and not at the meeting place. But we organized in Jacksonville in 1941, 50 years ago. And that's when they gave me the Forest Farmer Award after been in there 50 years. They're the only father and son that ever received the Forest Farmer Award, my father and me. And so Bill and I would go to forestry meetings. We'd go to some society meetings. We'd go to Forest Farmers meeting. We'd go to Georgia Forest Association meetings, and we'd go to other meetings in Georgia because we'd make arrangements, and we had good relations here in Georgia on forestry for a long time. We could rally people that own land for many years. When we get a problem with the legislature, that we could go to Atlanta and get something done about it. But we've lost our ability to do that now because we don't have the landowners in that county. You got the paper mills, and they won't even, the representatives don't want to talk to them unless they tied in with them some way or another, And but we had mighty good relations for a number of years. We used to have what we call the county unit system, where Eccles County, with the fewest people in Georgia, had 2 county units, and Fulton, with the most people, had 6. Well, that relationship was these 2 down here had as much to do as 2 of theirs, and they just represented maybe 1,000 people or 1,500 maybe. Well, they were talking about 1 million up there, So that was a relationship where the people in the woods could get the attention of you legislators.
That's happening everywhere in the Americas.
Yeah, I guess
urban dominance now. There's
one vote, one person.
That's right.
Whether they show any responsibility or not, it really doesn't make sense that somebody out there on welfare got just as much a vote as you and me.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it is.
One of the operations we haven't discussed, you mentioned it, and I'm intrigued by it, is the Langdale Foundation. Some of the newspaper clippings, the foundation has pledged or given $250,000 to the senior living center. So it's a major operation.
We didn't give all that from the Langdale Foundation. It might have looked like it, but we gave some of that to Langdale Company and some out of Langdale Timber Company and the Langdale Foundation. Now we really don't have that much in the foundation, but we were building it up pretty good. And we have used it over the years for a lot of things like that, but there's our things that we give to. And our idea that when we organized it was to do more, and I was going to leave my stock to the foundation, and so not having any children, and that would be one way to do these things, But then the law changed under the Nixon administration, I believe it was, and it's more difficult to do that now. But we're still doing it. Come in. We're still operating that way.
Johnny's got it all set up and ready.
Well, would you want to break now and go around there?
Why would I do that?
All right.
That might give me some more questions to ask. I'd like to, we just finished watching a videotape this period of time, and one of the things, you and Johnny looked at each other and smiled when Ottmeyer was saying the big problem was taking control of the land. Was that an exaggeration? That way you smiled?
No, not really, but that did have some extent. Johnny wouldn't know about that, but I did, because they had a lot of people that lived around on that property. I guess from Civil War days that they were down there, they'd have 20-acre field, and they would be living there, and they would have some cows on the other land, and just plain what we call piney woods cows. There wasn't any real breed and bred stock.
Right.
And they have a time with those people because they want to make a living. They either had to make moonshine, or they had to steal, or they had to get into something some way or another, So it was a problem. But he might have exaggerated some. And then Mrs. Ottmeyer, she said they had a killing every Saturday night. It wasn't quite like that.
Yeah. But you had when you bought property, there were people who had traditionally used it for running their cattle or hunted on it or whatever.
Right. And they took it as their own, and you couldn't stop it. And they'd burn those woods too. Because see, you burn the woods and your cows would do fine on this wild grass. If you burn it, you get about 3 months of good grace. If you don't burn it, you don't get it on that new growth.
I never realized that they burned other people's land.
Yes. That was what they did most of. That was our problem. I would say our problem in starting fire control was people burning other people's land to get grass for their cows. Because see, we had a law that you had to fence your fields. They didn't have to fence the cows.
That's the way it was out west,
Yeah.
the fencing laws.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing here.
Now it's the opposite.
But that's no
Everybody down-
longer. I mean,
Yeah, everybody down there thought they were absolutely ruined when that happened. And a lot of people had to get rid of the cows, but it was the best thing because they couldn't live on those cows.
yeah. Sounded like someone in this videotape. Ken Williams was on our board of directors. I know him a little bit for Champion's vice president in this area. The Champion doesn't think that's a very good deal they've got.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, when they got it from St. Regis, had it, but they don't really have any consumption for that wood. It'd make a difference if you had your manufacturing plant there and had that paper mill,
Yes.
and that was.
I thought not knowing the story at all, I thought the film was amazingly candid.
Yeah, I think
Usually
it was good.
you slough over that.
Yeah.
Problems in relationships.
Yeah, I think it was too. I think it was good. And the Lawrences, I knew every one of them. I knew the Lawrences' father and these two boys, and I knew everybody except the senior knight. And he put his wife in an institution, and he married his secretary, and he left and gave his family his stock in Superior Pines. So I never did come in contact with him, but they say he was a good businessman. I don't know. I knew the Williamses and the Lawrences, and I knew some of the Knight children, but not Mr. Knight himself.
You said you argued with Ottmeyer against signing the lease.
Oh yeah, I didn't want him to do that, and I thought that he was doing it on a cheaper basis than he should have, but I guess that what he overrode me on was that he was afraid they were going to have trouble with ownership, just like you do with any business where you've got several families in, you know. And we had trouble during the war when Bill Ottmeyer went into the communication part of the Air Force. A Knight moved down there, Knight's son, this one and he didn't know anything about it. He'd alienate those people. He'd alienate anybody, and he would just cause problems. And he wanted to change things. And he wanted to get back in business, sort of. And the people down there didn't like him that much. When Bill Ottmeyer got back, I don't think he wanted to fight that problem, and he wanted to do it, and he wanted the continuity of it, and so he went ahead and did it.
Well, if they hadn't signed that lease, would they have had to build manufacturing plants like you did? Or could they live on selling?
Well, no. That time things were coming along a little better. See, that made that lease in 48.
Yeah.
Started at 48. Things will get a little bit better, but it would have been better. And of course, Bill Ottmeyer was looking at it like I was. He wanted a pulp and paper mill there that could do it. But Bill Ottmeyer and I had gone around the paper mills, and that's one reason I got in the pulpwood business as soon as I did, because we knew we had to have a pulpwood market. Had to have it if we were going to practice forest. He and us.
Now there would have been. He could have done that too.
Yeah. And because see, the Lawrences and all, they had paper mill friends and owned stock in paper mills up there. In fact, I went up to Kalamazoo, Michigan, their headquarters, and they wanted to talk to paper mill up there they had an interest in, because they wanted to build one in the South, and at that time build it down in between us and Superior Pine Products Company, and we make a deal with them. And I was interested at that time, but it didn't materialize. Kalamazoo Vegetable Parchment Paper Company.
Well, this might be a good place to stop. What we haven't talked about at all, and then it'll broaden the story, is your work as a director in all the foundations and organizations, because it goes beyond family business into all the South and Georgia and what's going on in the forestry associations and so forth. So maybe we can talk about those things tomorrow.
Well, did you want to continue this afternoon, or what is your plan this afternoon?
Well, I could continue with you. I will be back from lunch. I'm not sure when.
Well, that's just
John W. has a little bit more of the story to tell.
Do you want, did us see if he's gonna be here, or whether you want to get him, or, but I can do this afternoon if you want me to. So
Well, we have about a half hour more with John.
All right.
Or you'll be here this afternoon then.
I'll come back here, make sure I'm here.
Well, why don't we plan to say at 2:30, 3 o'clock?
Okay.
Is that too late?
No. And we'll tell John that you're gonna be back in, so let's see what John's schedule is.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can find him and find that out.
Okay.